My name is Sandra DiTusa, and I am the founder and leader of the not-for-profit organization Spay Baton Rouge. I would like to talk to you today about pet overpopulation, why it occurs, what other communities have done to curb the number of surplus pets, my efforts here in East Baton Rouge Parish, and what more we can do. Every year in the U.S., there are millions of cats and dogs that are euthanized in community animal shelters because there's nowhere for them to go. Mahatma Gandhi stated that one can measure the greatness of a nation and its moral progress by the way it treats its animals. He goes on to say, cow protection is not merely the protection of the cow. It means protection of all that lives and is helpless and weak in the world. The cow represents those without a voice that needs our help. The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals estimates 3.2 million cats and dogs are put down in U.S. shelters every year. Often those animals are the offspring of cherished family pets, even purebreds, whose descendants multiply indiscriminately, which was represented in the cat and dog pyramid below. Spay USA estimates a fertile female dog and her litters can total 512 puppies in 3 years and 67,000 in 6 years. Likewise, a fertile female cat and her offspring can produce a total of 376 kittens in 3 years and 11 million in 9 years. To put these numbers in perspective for our community, in East Baton Rouge Parish, the number of unwanted pets is astounding. For example, in 2007, over 11,000 cats and dogs were impounded, and nearly 10,000, or 86%, were euthanized at our community shelter. The reality is, not many people are aware of the high euthanasia rate. I was unaware of the high euthanasia rate until I visited our local animal control to search for my lost cat in 2004. To put a visual on my experience for the first time that I went to our local shelter looking for my cat. When I walked through the stray dog area, I was taken aback by the number of dogs that were there, and the sound of all the dogs barking was deafening. Once I got to the stray cat room, there were so many forlorn-looking cats in steel cages. I saw a litter of tiny newborn kittens languishing alone without a mother cat in sight. I saw one drenched kitten that I will never forget. She was staring at me and crying out while reaching for me as if she was a prisoner of war. It was truly heart-wrenching. I later learned that in that year, 2004, 90% of all cats were euthanized at the East Baton Rouge Parish Animal Shelter. In late 2004, months after visiting animal control looking for my lost cat, which incidentally I did find, I could not stop thinking about all the cats and dogs languishing at our shelter. I knew I couldn't look away and that I needed to do something to change the fate of these unwanted cats and dogs. I started to research what other communities were doing to decrease the surplus pets in their community. I learned that New Hampshire generated funds to provide spay or neuter surgeries for cats and dogs owned by those living in low-income areas. And within 6 years of running their program, New Hampshire decreased their impound rate by 75%. In further researching this approach, I learned that other communities created targeted spay-neuter surgeries for pets in low-income areas. They, too, obtained a decrease in their impound rates. Jacksonville, Florida decreased their impound rate by 52% in 12 years. Waco, Texas saw a 43% decrease in 8 years. Huntsville, Alabama achieved a 36% decrease in 5 years. California realized a 35% decrease in 20 years. And Indianapolis, Indiana, decreased their impound rate 20% in 5 years. I then decided it would be important to next understand the root causes of our issue at the East Baton Rouge Parish to try to decrease our impound rate. I wanted to know where in our community the stray and unwanted pets were coming from. I approached the director of our local shelter and requested documentation of our impound rates. I found that our impound rates were increasing by hundreds of cats and dogs every year. I also received the addresses of all of the cats and dogs that were impounded from the previous year. A geographic information system analyst took these addresses and created a map to identify where the surplus pets were coming from in our community. We learned that the highest number of impounds at our local shelter within our community were coming from our low-income areas. So these findings supported New Hampshire's research that our low-income areas are in need of assistance, supporting the approach that providing sterilization surgeries for low-income pets may reduce our impound rates. Academic papers have since been published in support of a targeted sterilization program for pets owned by low-income families as well. Based on this information, I put together the necessary paperwork to set up a not-for-profit organization. In January 2005, Spay Baton Rouge was formed. Over the past 13 years, we worked with local veterinarians to pay for over 15,000 spay or neuter surgeries for pets in our targeted areas. In first starting out in the endeavor, many people expressed their dismay regarding people in low-income areas having pets. I do not find it surprising at all. People of all economic levels bond with their pets and value their companionship, affection, and the pleasure they provide in their lives. During an outreach event in one of our target communities, 126 people were polled, and we learned that 76% of their pets were fertile and 93% had never been to a veterinarian. As you may recall, in my early research, I learned our impound rate kept going up by hundreds of pets each year. In tracking this information, we learned in 2007 that increase stopped. Since 2007, we have seen a 34% impound decrease. We went from impounding 11,128 cats and dogs in 2007 to 7,316 in 2018. I believe the 15,000 sterilization surgeries Spay Baton Rouge was involved with for cats and dogs at risk of breeding played a part in this reduction. In 2007, Representative Warren Trish authored a bill to generate funds for proactive programs for parishes with a shelter and to build a shelter for parishes without one. He knew that a proactive approach in assisting our community pets would in the long run save money and animals. Unfortunately, his bill did not pass. I would like to reopen the discussion to generate funds to assist our community's animals in Baton Rouge and in all of Louisiana. If we can support communities in this way, our animals can stay with the people who love them, and they do not end up in the system. This takes me back to Gandhi's quote, one can measure the greatness and the moral progress of a nation by looking at how it treats its animals. It is moral and good to support our underserved communities and their pets. Whether or not it saves our community money, it is the right thing and moral thing to do. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to my presentation.